Okay,
I
so there are
guess like
three. Yeah.
yeah, one way is like only reading the data, and two way is like to send the data.
Okay. Let me explain that. So there are three types of binding modes as of now, which is available, and the JSON model that we are talking about, right? By default, the default binding mode for JSON model is two-way. Okay. So default model or default binding mode for JSON model is two-way, but explicitly you can set the mode of a JSON model to one way or one time. That is possible. So which is that method which can help you to set the default binding mode? So method is set default binding mode. So this method will help you to set the default binding mode for JSON model. So now, first of all, let's understand what is a binding mode here. Okay. So what is one way? One way means, okay, one way means, one way means data will flow from model to view. Okay. What is one way? One way means data will flow from model to view, means the data which is available inside the model, that data you can display to the view using data binding. Okay, that is your one way. But what about two way? Two way binding mode means data will flow from model to view and also from view to model. So it's a vice versa. Okay. So the data which is stored inside the model, that data will flow from model to view. And let's say if you're making any changes on the view, again, that data will be stored back to the model. That is your two way. Okay. So it's a bidirectional, means data will flow from two ways. Okay. Now last is one time. So the binding which is done, it's only the data will flow from model to view only once. After that, if you make any changes in the model, still the data will not be reflected on the view because you kept the default binding mode as one time. Okay. So in real time scenario, I'll give you one example. So as of now, okay, guys, let's understand. As of now, the model that we created, let me comment this piece of code that we added so far. Yeah, let it be. Yeah. So as of now, see that what we did earlier, we created one model inside the manifest, and within that within that model, the local JSON data is stored, right? That is what we did. Now from that model, we want to bring that data to this table. So what we did a data binding, and now I'm able to see this data on the table, right? But this is your one way. Okay, so far it's a one-way process. So if the binding mode is one way, definitely your data will flow from model to view. And that is already working here. Okay, I'm able to see the data. But what is the purpose of two data here? Two-way here. Two-way binding mode means now if I'm making any changes here, okay, if I make any change in this field or any data which is binded on the view, so that same data again it will be stored back to the model. So that is your two-way. Okay, internally what it will do, it will trigger a update and it will trigger the model data internally. So that is a main purpose of two-way here. So mostly where we use two ways to get the data from any input fields. Okay, so I'll give you one example. Wait, so let me change back. So we use a couple of text fields, right? Instead of that, I'll just use input. Okay, so I kept the input field for name. Now let's do one thing. Let it reload. Okay. Now, can you see all these are editable now, guys? Okay. So you can change any value. Now, whatever the value you change, automatically this value will be updated inside the model. Okay. Without clicking on save, still that internally one method will trigger, one event will trigger, and it will update the model contents as well in this because we kept the binding mode as two-way. So I'll click on inspect now. Okay, first of all, so I'll put a breakpoint on get model. Sorry. Okay, I'll click on get model. Now o model dot get data I'll write. Okay, now inside the get data, I'll look for the first record, and that is what the first record we have HD 1000 notebook basic 15. Okay, that is the first record, right? So I'm going to make a change for the first record in the name property. So name property has notebook basic 15, right? So it has notebook basic 15. So guys, you're paying attention, right? Guys?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So in name property, we have notebook basic 15 value. So from front end, what I will do, okay, I'll just remove the debugger. And now here, I'll just remove that 15 now. Okay, that's it. And now again, I'll get the model. Okay, now if I get the data for the first record, so what is the name we have here? Is it updated inside the model?
Yes.
See how this is possible? This is possible only with the help of two-way binding mode. So whatever you make changes on the front end side, especially on the view, that same data or that same change will be carried to the model and that changes will be done inside the model. So that is your two-way binding mode. Okay. So the contents will flow from two ways, either from model to view or from view to model. And this two-way binding mode is very helpful, like in mostly in case of creation of new records. Okay, guys, at least you get it. The difference between the one way and two way. One way, see if the default binding mode is one way, then if you're making any changes on this view, okay, if you're making any changes on this view, it won't reflect back to the model because the default binding mode is one way. Okay, see if so, I'll add one path here. So now let's add explicitly how to add a binding mode here. So this is the path which I added. Now give comma, you can add a mode property. So mode in within a mode, you can add a binding mode. So you can search for binding mode here. Okay, so there are different binding modes. See, default, one time, one way, and two way. Okay, so now let's say I want to set it as a one way. So this is a default binding mode. Just pass it. So guys, whenever you want to add a more information to the binding syntax, the path that we provided, right? It has to be it has to be assigned to the path property. Path and mode are standard properties of the binding. Okay, now I made this binding mode as one way explicitly. Now let's see how it goes. Okay, so now any change if I make to this name field, because for name field we set it as a one way, right? So when we set this as a one way, then definitely if we make any change on the front end or on the view spatially, it won't update the model data. Okay, it should not update the model first of all. So first get the model. Get data. You can, yes, as of now, the name has notebook basic 15. I'll remove the debugger and now I'll make a change here. Okay, again, I'll get the model. Now, can you see the data as it is? Guys?
Yes, Abhi.
Okay. So what I did, I explicitly set the binding mode as one way for that spatial property, for that specific property. Okay. So you can set the mode. So this is the standard syntax, guys. The path and mode, it is a standard property. Okay, it's coming from the binding infos. So if you go with manage object spatial setting. It's a part of manage object. Let me check this properly. I'll show you this. No, the properties which I used, right? It's declared in one API that only I'm checking. Manage object model. Okay, I'll check that, guys, and I'll let you know, okay, where we can get all those details. But under inside the manage object only that setting is there. That's why by default it's coming from this, the path mode, it is all part of manage object. Okay, this syntax, like see, apart from path mode, you can add a formatter. A formatter is also a standard keyword. Formatter you can add. You can add parts. So all these are different properties that you can use. You can use within this binding syntax. I think mostly we use path, mode, formatter, and parts. Only these four properties we use it mostly, not anything else apart from that. But at least you got it right. How the one way and two way works, guys. See, by default, JSON model, the default binding mode for JSON model is two way. That's why any change if I was making on this name input field, so it was reflecting in the model data. But now explicitly I made that name input field as one way binding mode. So now going forward, if I make any change in the name input field, it's not even reflecting inside the model because we have set that model way to one way, not to two way. Okay. So one time means it's same like one way. So whatever the change you make in the model, that will be only once. So JSON model, we never set one time. So that is only responsible for the resource model. Okay. So inside the manifest, there is one more model called I18. Can you see this I18, which is a resource model? So default binding mode for resource model is one time. Okay. And it only supports one-time binding mode. Resource model doesn't support one way or two way. It only supports one-time binding mode. So tomorrow we'll see what is one time. But yes, and it is a part of resource model. We'll see that. So tomorrow our first priority is to complete remaining model types, binding types, that is element binding and property binding. So that two binding types we will cover. Binding modes, yes, it's almost done. And then we will start with I18 model, which is nothing but your resource model. Okay. So guys, any questions? The topics that we covered today, for any topic, any questions are there in your mind that you want to discuss?
Controller.js.
Controller.js.
No, sir, component.js.
Okay, tell me.
You just we inserted that where O model you just created, no?
Which one? Which one?
Just creating a product JSON model from the
Yeah,
controller.
see this, this function I declared it inside model.js. So there is one more way, guys. Like if you don't want to declare inside manifest or inside controller, then there is a separate JS file, models.js file. So within that JS file, you can add multiple functions, and that functions will return the response of that model or instance of that model. So
So
you just
here,
declare a model declaration here, and you set that model inside component using this syntax.
so first we have to declare in model, then controller, right?
Yes, then you call that inside component.js file. Yes. Or otherwise, I would say declaring inside manifest is the easiest way. You just add the model name, provide type and data source, that's it.
Can
And
open,
use it wherever you want.
can you open component?
Yeah.
So you are importing from the model, right? Model.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. This is the set model, right? It will set that create device.
Yes. Yeah. So see, guys, apart from manifest, if you want to use that model, like if let's say if that model is not created inside the manifest, then wherever you want to create the model, definitely we have to use set model method. Okay, but if the model is getting declared inside the manifest, so for manifest, we don't have to use set model, right? Because already it is set. Internally, the model is already available and it is set to all the views and controllers.
And we like in the from the component we are displaying from the view XML file or what?
Yes. So see, if I set this model on this component, right? So when you say this dot set model, definitely this model is set on the UI component. So this is main parent component. Okay. So when you set any model instance to the main component, definitely that model is accessible in any view file or controller file.
In
You have
any
access to that.
in any directory.
Yes, in any. Yes. You can access that easily. Even you can do the binding. So the binding that we did, right? This will also work for any view file because that model is already declared inside the component and it already holds the data. Then you can definitely use that model wherever you need in any view or controller file. Okay. Any other question? Yeah.
Avik,
Yes.
declaring the model in component and model JS is like a global or else only for that view.
It's a global.
It's a global,
Declaring a
just like in
model.
manifest. Okay.
Yes, declaring a model inside the component and even inside the model.js, right?
Okay.
Or in manifest means the model, if it is getting declared inside the manifest or inside the component, both are global models.
Okay.
Okay, that is a default. But when you declare it inside using a controller, then you have an option to choose like whether you want to set this model on the view level or on the component level.
Component. Okay.
Okay, so that code I've already added here. This one we can use for that. Okay, so guys, you can also you can load the data. See, instead of creating the data source within a manifest, you can also load the data directly from the controller. Okay, just specify here dot slash model slash product dot JSON. That's it. So when you provide a path of that JSON file, so that data will be loaded and it will be stored inside the JSON model. And you set that model on the view or on the component level. So at the end, again, it will load that data from local JSON file and it will store that in a JSON model. Okay, so this is one more way. So this syntax
So
will definitely, it will ignore this syntax. Okay, you don't have to write a data source here inside the manifest if you're writing this code here directly.
so Avik, you are returning that old JSON model, right? That
Yes.
so in the page like we have to use that old JSON model slash like that or
Where?
In the XML.
Yeah, in XML, see, now the model to which I'm passing is local JSON model and global JSON model. So like if you want to use this, then only model name will change, right?
That model will be that thing, right?
Yes. See, now this model is referring to local JSON model and even global JSON model because we pass the same instance to both the models, right? So both the models will have the same data. So even you can go ahead, you can use local JSON model or global JSON model. See, I'll just copy this local JSON model, and wherever this file is there, local, I'll just replace that with all. So now local JSON model is replaced. Now let's see the output. Now it should read the data from local JSON model. See? Okay.
The better thing
Only
is
the path matters. This path matters. This path should be defined properly. Dot means coming out of a controller folder. First, see, when you specify dot, what it will do, it will make sure that you are coming out of the controller. After that, you want to access model folder. So that's why I provided slash model. And now inside the model, you want to use product.json file. So that is what the path we provided here. Any other question, guys?